Today's Attorney General Candidate Forum is to provide the Chamber membership and business community an opportunity to meet and learn the views of the Attorney General candidates prior to the general election on Tuesday, November 8th. The order of the candidates on stage, in the order the candidates answer the questions were predetermined by coin toss just before the start of today's forum. The program will begin with each candidate providing a 3-minute opening statement, beginning with Douglas Moylan, followed by Levin Camacho. Candidates will be given 2 minutes to respond to each question directed to them. The other candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the same question. And then the candidate who answered the question initially will be provided a 1-minute rebuttal. Timekeeper will provide prompts for each candidate to keep the allotted time to ensure we get all the questions, everyone has a fair shot to respond. The Chamber has prepared a number of questions ahead of time, of which we will be used for today's forum. Candidates in the audience are asked not to interrupt the candidate during their allotted time to respond to a question, and time will pause while the moderator, which is me, maintains order. The candidate who was interrupted will be asked to complete their responses within the time allotted. And candidates will be addressed as Mr. during the presentation, and it is practiced in other national forums. The audience is asked to refrain from applause so that each candidate will have the opportunity to fully respond to each question within the specified time allotted. And absolutely, I'm sure this is a very genteel audience, but no noisemakers are allowed. And if you have a whistle or firecracker in your pocket, we will be asked to leave. Candidates will be given 2 minutes for their concluding remarks. So I have the pleasure to introduce the candidates. Levin Camacho was in private practice for 12 years before being elected Attorney General in 2018 and is the incumbent Attorney General of Guam. He taught in Guam public school system. He worked in low-income communities in Seattle and Boston and litigated several land rights and environmental justice causes, including a lawsuit to stop the construction of a firing range complex over at Pagat Village, and a case challenging the proposed development of a high-rise tower in southern Guam. He earned his Juris Doctor degree from Boston University School of Law in 2005. Douglas Moylan was the first elected and youngest Attorney General of Guam, serving from 2003 to 2006. He is licensed to practice law in Guam, California, and Washington, D.C. He served as staff attorney in the Superior Court of Guam, served as legislative counsel to the 24th, 25th, and 26th Guam legislatures. He also served as a Guam Election Commission Board member for several terms. He appeared and litigated criminal and civil jury trials before the Superior Court of Guam, Supreme Court of Guam, District Court of Guam, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. He successfully appeared as a party before the United States Supreme Court in the Guam bond borrowing case appeal. He earned his Juris Doctor degree from Santa Clara University School of Law in 1991. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask the candidates to please take their places and join me on stage. Okay, so as we mentioned, Douglas Moylan will give his opening statement.
Hafide Chairman Untalan, President Castro, officers of the Chamber of Commerce, and to all of you here today. Thank you for this forum. My name is Douglas Moylan, and I am a candidate for the Attorney General. Let's make no qualms about it. This election is about whether you feel safe. It's about Guam's increasing crime problem, not just against us, but crimes threatening yours and your employees, and bleeding your profits. To speak your language, I have a service to sell, and that service is my solution to your crime problem. I am the toughest AG on Guam. Heck, based upon my first term as AG, I figure most of you think I'm a troublemaker and enjoy ruining your day. In fact, you may be right. When you hire a lawyer, you don't want a nice guy that says nice things. You pay for the meanest pit bull that you can buy so that you can win. I submit to you, a climate of law and order is conducive to a profitable business. An environment where criminals are afraid of the Attorney General and where the law-abiding businesses appreciate an AG's toughness. This creates the atmosphere that is most conducive to your businesses by paying salaries, buying goods and services, and most especially, making a profit. Criminals take your merchandise, criminals scare off your customers, criminals lower property values, criminals force you to pay security services and equipment. But most importantly, criminals can take yours and your employees' lives. Corrupt government officials take more of your profits and higher cost of doing business, but let's not discuss that here today. Capitalism flourishes when law and order exists. That's our job. The AG's most important duty is to protect you, your family, and your businesses from harm. Everyone must follow the law. I submit to you that my reputation and record is just that. If you elect me, you elect my platform, and my word to you today, that word is that I will be and am the toughest AG on crime. I believe in capitalism and the American free market system. I believe in Reaganomics. I believe in deregulation and in laissez-faire capitalism. The less government in your businesses, the greater your profits. I do not believe in socialism, communism, or a progressive AG. Businesses in LA, Chicago, and New York are suffering because of weak-on-crime prosecutors. The San Francisco just recalled their weak-on-crime prosecutor, Chesa Bodine. The late Francis L. Moylan created Moylan Enterprises. He was my grandfather and inspiration. For those of you who knew him, you probably knew he was a tough businessman. What you might not have known was that he was a police reservist with the Guam Police Department and a boxer in his earlier years. He went from his business in the day to driving a patrol car at night. Although he only finished 8th grade before the Great Depression broke apart his family, he also wanted to be an attorney. I achieved the dream when I became an attorney and then Guam's first elected chief law enforcement officer. My family's roots share a common connection with the Chamber. Law enforcement and profitability go hand in hand. If elected, you can expect me for the enforcement of laws, especially those promoting free trade and commerce, but most of all, being the toughest AG. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan.
Everyone deserves to feel safe in their home and in their workplace. And today, people are scared. But keeping our communities safe has been and will continue to be my top priority. And that is why if you commit a serious crime, you will be held accountable. But I cannot do it alone. In order to properly address the crime problem in Guam, we need a robust police department, we need a court system that is going to support our efforts, and we need to have a Department of Corrections that has beds for the people who are being incarcerated. My approach to crime has been to prosecute, to partner, and to prevent. Prosecution is the simplest. If you commit a serious crime, you will go to jail. You will be held accountable. The only way that we can successfully prosecute criminals, though, is if we have victims and witnesses who are willing to come forward. And the way that we do that is we build trust through partnerships. We have worked with the Guam Police Department to promote transparency because as the Office of the Attorney General, we are answerable to the people of Guam. We cannot continue down the path of making decisions and not being able to justify them. We can have prosecutors who are not willing to explain the decisions that they've made in particular cases. We have also partnered with customs and federal law enforcement agencies because drugs is the biggest root of our crime problem. Without addressing drugs, we are just kicking the can down the road. We are bringing in canine units to help protect our borders. We are bringing additional resources to build out our capacity with our federal law enforcement partners. And the most effective way to combat crime is to prevent it from beginning whatsoever. How do you prevent crime? You are not going to steal and rob if you are flourishing as a people, if you are flourishing as a community. If you do not have to worry about putting food on the table, gas in your car, a roof over your head, you aren't committing thefts. We need to invest in our community. We need to invest in programs that support treatment and addiction for those who are incarcerated and for those who are struggling with substance abuse. But safety is my top and will continue to be my top priority, but it's not the only thing we do. As Attorney General, you can't be a one-trick pony. Families depend on us to get them the support they need. Over the last 3 years, we have distributed $28 million, millions more than Mr. Moylan did when he was in this office. We have worked with, not against, our government agencies, and by working with them, we have collected millions in outstanding taxes and outstanding bills. We have also guided them through an unprecedented pandemic. And the legacy that I want to lead as Attorney General, is to protect our environment. We have a unanimous win before the Supreme Court of the United States in our quest to hold the Navy accountable to pay their fair share of cleaning Florida. We have sued the manufacturers of PFAS. I'm running on my record, not from it, and I look forward to explaining more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. So, Mr. Camacho, since Mr. Moylan had the opening statement first, I'm going to ask you the question first and remind our candidates that you have 2 minutes to answer the question. You have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and then, Mr. Camacho, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal. So I'm going to randomly select your first question. So this one has to do with, well, let me ask this question. The Attorney General's office has historically has had issues retaining top attorneys due to low compensation compared with their private sector counterparts. The community perceives that criminals have legal counsel representation from highly experienced and educated attorneys from the private sector. In contrast, the government attorneys do not have the commensurate level of capability. Prosecutors must have the skill set and experience to ensure justice prevails when perpetrators commit crimes. The question is 2 parts. What is your plan for hiring and retaining qualified employees for the AG's office? The second one is, how will you ensure that government attorneys protect the public by effectively prosecuting those who commit crimes? 2 minutes, please.
We have 55 attorneys at the Office of the Attorney General. And Mr. Moylan actually said that is the optimal number of attorneys to have at our office when he was Attorney General back in 2004. We have more attorneys in every single division than Mr. Moylan ever had when he was the Attorney General. Now that being said, we do need more prosecutors. And the steps that we've taken to recruit, 1, we are advertising nationally at over 80 law schools to recruit law school graduates as well as younger attorneys to come to our office. 2, we have, now through pay, the legislature passed a 15% increase differential pay for prosecutors to acknowledge the hard work that our dedicated prosecutors have, the tough job that they have, because it isn't easy. It's not for everyone. So the legislature recognized that, and through our office's assistance, they have increased salaries 15%. So over the weekend, now they are looking at a 21% increase, which will assist us in retaining and recruiting attorneys. I'll reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. Mr. Moylan, would you like me to repeat the question?
You can repeat it, yes.
What is your plan for hiring and retaining qualified employees for the AG's office? And how will you ensure that government attorneys protect the public by effectively prosecuting those who commit crimes?
Thank you.
2 minutes.
What you just heard here is your typical government bureaucrat response. Throw more money at the problem, and you're supposed to get a better result. 15 years ago, when I served in that office, we always came in under budget and had surpluses. Mr. Camacho has, and you can be fact-checked on this, but he probably has $1 million more than I had when I served in that AG's office. I'm told by my staff who I've contacted since this election began, we had about 14 attorneys in that office, and we were prosecuting just as much as he was doing with less. And my lawyers weren't leaving me. I treated them with respect. I treated them as I would want them to treat me, and they stayed with me. Of course, you have your here and there problems with management issues, but my team was a team, and we effectively prosecuted not only the violent crimes, the non-violent crimes, but also ensuring that your government is clean. That's where the most bleeding occurs, is in the government of Guam, when they take those millions of dollars and then expect you to pay it back into the government coffers through your fees and things. How do I keep them? How am I going to recruit them? We have 2 prosecutors that left this AG in this room this evening, or this morning, that are willing to talk to you and tell you how bad it is there. And I'm told there was 9 of them that left, and they're still on island, some of them. I will recruit like recruited before. I will treat the people with respect. We all go off island. We can't grow them on Guam. There's not enough. But we have other prosecutors that are currently in the alternate public defender, the public defender's office, that might be willing to come back. That's my first choice. Bring them back from the public, where they're in the community. Otherwise, we find them off island. You're not going to get lawyers coming into Guam, and he's had at least a year to replenish the 21 that Liz Anderson set the standard for. That's not my office standard. That was Liz Anderson's standard, the one that preceded him. 21 prosecutors. They're down to probably about 8 or 9. Thank you.
We have 15 prosecutors, Mr. Moreland, which is significantly more than the 8 you had in 2005. When you were dismissing cases because you didn't have the attorneys to prosecute. When you were having your prosecutors cover child support hearings because you didn't have enough attorneys. So how do we get to a situation where we build our prosecutors? We recruit, we retain, we train. And we have already taken action. You had your chance. All the things you're talking about, you had 4 years in office and you didn't do it. We have come back, we built, and we're going to do it again. Okay. Now I understand we're going to keep talking about prosecution, but think about the amount of attorney. We had 1 attorney in civil litigation to represent the entire government of Guam. We don't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to answer that question. He had 1 attorney to represent consumer protection. We are bringing in millions of dollars because we have the staff to do it. We have 1 division we need to work on, and we're taking concrete steps to address it.
Thank you very much for your answer. Now, the next question, which will be answered by Mr. Moylan. Randomly selected question. This has to do with, let me just give you a preface. Businesses and residents alike have experienced the rise in crime on our island firsthand. In the Chamber's recent crime flash survey, 90% of respondents confirmed that they were concerned about crime at or around their places of business. In addition, 64% said that their company or employees were victims of a crime last year. The street price for methamphetamine has decreased dramatically over the previous several months in Guam, indicative of an abundance of supply. Every day we read the newspapers or watch the news, and violent crimes against people and property permeate the top stories. So your question, Mr. Moylan, what would your office policies be regarding plea bargaining in drug offense cases?
First of all,
please.
thank you. First of all, he's got to be fact-checked. I'm just saying that he's putting out wrong information, and that is my opponent. Crime is on the rise. One of the key problems with crime on Guam right now is the drugs. You need to get the Guam Police Department into the villages like they used to do. In my opening statement, my grandfather, he actually got into a patrol vehicle and patrolled at night. Those nice patrol cars that they have out there, if elected, I will work with Guam Police Department and the governor to get motorcycle cops out there in the villages. They know where the crime's happening. Swamp Road, you go where they are, you root out the crime. The police presence alone is very important to creating the environment of law enforcement. The officers go out, and I talked to a former GPD police chief under the Camacho administration, and he specifically agreed with that. You need to get the cops out there. The presence of law enforcement creates a deterrence in itself, as well as a strong AG that plea agreements are necessary in our criminal justice system on Guam and everywhere else in the world. You need to have plea agreements. But he is giving away the farm on how he's doing his plea agreements. His opening statement said it all. For serious crimes, we're going to incarcerate people. No, you do not, and that is a progressive statement. You incarcerate anyone that commits the crime. You ask the judge to incarcerate them. And for the medias out there, if I get in, we're going to show the medias, give the medias a document. This is what we asked this judge for, and give the result. This is what the judge did. Shine the light on the judges, the magistrate judge or whoever else, so that they are accountable as much as we are accountable. And I invite the medias, if I'm elected, to take me up on my promise. We will be putting light upon what is going on in the judiciary if there's anything going on in terms of light incarceration, pre-trial and post-trial as well. The prosecution of crimes.
Thank you, Mr. Tumon. Mr. Camacho, your response,
Can
please.
you repeat the specific question? Sorry.
The question is, what would your office policies be regarding plea bargaining in drug offense cases?
In drug offenses, okay. Drugs are the biggest problem on the island. And I know Mr. Moylan is a big fan of mass incarceration, but we can't just bury our head in the sand and think that you're going to put someone in jail and that's going to magically cure their addiction problem. We've moved on, you know. The courts have adult drug court treatment programs. That's by statute because they have been shown to be effective. When you treat the addiction, we're talking about addicts. I want to be clear. If you are bringing in drugs, if you are dealing drugs, you need to be held accountable. You need to go to jail. But for the average person that's being charged that you're seeing, it's residue. It's a pipe. And the court has made the decision that the best way to treat those individuals is not by putting them in jail and hoping that, okay, they're going to be okay and they're going to come out and now they're not going to do drugs. It's by putting them, Lighthouse, New Beginnings, Guam Behavioral, they're assisting these individuals. So when we talk about plea bargaining, that's all part of, the court has designed it. It's actually a deferred plea, where they recognize that you need to get back on your feet and you're going to be recovered. The issue that we have in Guam, we had 700 pounds of meth seized by customs in the last few years. 700 pounds, think about that. 2016, the Supreme Court said, US Supreme Court, we can't prosecute someone locally and federally for a drug offense. So what we need to do is we need to continue to strengthen our relationships with our federal partners, the US Attorney, DEA, US Postal Service, and that's exactly what we've been doing. We just brought in 4 additional dogs to help prevent drugs from coming in, detecting them at the post office. 2 dogs will be dedicated at the port. We have pursued HIDA, High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area designation. We haven't got it yet, but we're not going to give up. Because the resources that we get by working with our federal partners is how we're going to nip it in the bud. You can't just be playing whack-a-mole. You need to take them out of the head. You need to go, the drugs are coming from Nevada, they come from California, and they come from Mexico. So to say that the drug problem, it's a much bigger issue than we have a lot of drugs on the island, where are they coming from? That's where we need to go. We need to prosecute those people. We need to put them in jail for a long time.
I like that word, whack-a-mole. I'm sorry, if you elect this AG, we are going to play whack-a-mole with the criminals. Better we play with them than they play with us. Your children, your wives, your family. People that take drugs made a choice. They must suffer the consequences. We're way past this therapy that's going on Guam. The fact that drugs have fallen in price, you of all people in the Chamber of Commerce know the reason why. The supply is out of control. It's going down the price. Plus, we've got this whole fentanyl coming down. Get ready. Teenagers dying in their bedrooms. It's happening in the States. This AG's approach is the same way that he's running that office. A very, I won't use the language on it, but when you're a victim, all these nice little platitudes that we tell you up here, let's put him in therapy, let's give him another chance. I'm a defense lawyer right now. It doesn't work. The recidivism rate of drug addicts is huge. The judges know it.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Next question, other than drug crime, the Attorney General is an elected official who serves as the territory's attorney and chief legal officer. The Office of the Attorney General of Guam is empowered to prosecute crimes, provide legal advice, and represent the government of Guam. The position enforces child support mandates, protects the vulnerable against abuse, supports victims through the justice process, and protects consumers from fraud and deceptive business practices. So, Mr. Moylan, your question is,
I'm sorry.
sorry, pardon me. So, Mr.
I
Camacho.
was going to ring my bell for your name.
As the Chief Legal Officer of the Territory, it is crucial to ensure that the adequate resources are available not only to support the competitive wages for attorneys in the agency, but programs to support victims, enforce child support, protect consumers, and the other vital responsibilities. What resources will you have or have you secured for the AG's office outside of local funding? And additionally, please provide some examples and what impact this has had.
We bring in millions of dollars, we manage millions of dollars of grants. And our Victim Services Center, which many of them are federally funded, we provide services to over 1,100 victims of crime per year. We assist in the collection of restitution, so if you've been a victim of crime, you get a judgment. We are the ones who are going in there and asking the defendants to pay the $50 a month every month. We also have the Criminal Injuries Compensation Plan. We have got a grant to reimburse the government, I believe 60 cents on the dollar, for every award that we give out for victims of violent crimes. Not only that, I see our deputy here, and I want to acknowledge Fred Nishihira and his consumer team. We brought in $12 million through our litigation in the opioid matters. We expect to have $1.4 million in the bank within the next few weeks. Okay? So that's the money that we're generating. This doesn't include, we had a $1.6 million tax deficiency that we collected last year. We have assisted, we've increased GMH's collections by over 30%. Child support, we have, for the first time, we are getting upgrades. We have $5 million, 2 decades that system has been updated. And we are moving forward, and after we get that, we can be more consumer friendly. We can waiting on the phone, we get over 100 calls a day in the child support division. We want to be able to move, so we're having more web interfaces. We want to be able to have, so you can chat with a person who can answer your questions if you have questions about child support. So we have been generating money for the government of Guam through our litigation, through our grants teams, and we're going to continue to do that for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Camacho. Mr. Moylan, would you like me to read the question?
Please.
What resources will you or have you secured for the AG's office outside of local funding? And please provide some examples and what impact this has had.
When I served as Attorney General, I had a very good team of federal grant writers. We knew that the government of Guam back then, and I think we were close to maybe $500,000 was the entire Guam budget, that we could not afford what we needed to pay for what we wanted to do in our agenda, our policy. What we did was we went to the federal, I had my federal grant writer be getting funds. There's a huge amount, and you guys know that federal grants out there, you just need a good grant writer. We had it. 2 of our family violence prosecutors were paid by federal grants. Child support, 1/3 of it is paid by the government, the federal government. The burn grant, that's a renewable every year amount of money that comes to most every state in the union. We use that for law enforcement. Mr. Camacho needs to be asked the question, these lawsuits that he's joining in and getting these other AGs in the states to litigate and to go to settlement, I understand that money that he referenced can't go to law enforcement. It goes to the therapeutics part of it. I will stand corrected if that's not the case, but that is my understanding. The money that we need, and if I get in there, I'm just smiling. His budget is tremendous. That 100 more people that he has now in his office, we're going to redirect those resources towards stopping and fighting crime. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a social worker. That's not my department. And ADC 1, ADC 2, it is not working. These guys are getting out and hurting people, stealing your money. attacking your businesses, taking things so that they can fund their drug habit. These people are animals in terms of how they think. They don't think straight anymore. I'm sorry, they're my neighbors, they're my friends, they're my family, but we have to stop it. And all the money that our Attorney General is throwing at the problem, look at what it's done. It's increasing. The price of drugs has gone down during his administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan.
The assumption that the money we have recovered, the millions we've recovered, can't be used to assist law enforcement is actually incorrect. And I just want to acknowledge the team that we have that have been on these calls, that have been part of the litigation for years to secure this money. Now, I can talk to you about the money that we've generated for the government. What is the impact, right? Who cares? Unless you can show that it's going to make an impact on our community. I do believe in treatment. I do believe people who are suffering from addiction, if we can provide them with assistance to get their lives on track, they deserve a second chance. I haven't given up on hope on people who have addiction issues. For our child support, we're going to use that money to be more consumer friendly. We've created direct lines to every single one of our divisions. That doesn't mean they're always going to answer immediately, but you know who to call. We have generated emails because that's what we need to do. We need to address the needs of our community. And again, it's not just crime. We do so many more things. We're going to go back in time to 2006 where all we do is move all of our attorneys into prosecution.
Thank you for your rebuttal. Now, the next question we'll ask for Mr. Moylan. The Attorney General has many compelling responsibilities to the people of Guam. What do you foresee as the first 90 days in office? What will be your accomplishments? And if elected, what are your top 3 priorities?
If I get elected on November 8th, on November 9th, I'm recruiting. That is the top priority, to fix what this Attorney General has done to that office. Liz Anderson handed him 21 prosecutors. He's down to 8, 7, whatever that number is. And by the way, fact check. I never had all my prosecutors all my attorneys put in prosecution. We spread them around. Any professional knows you multitask. This is how you save the taxpayer dollars. You take the prosecutor, you put him over at child support if there's a need for it. You take the child support attorney, you put him over in civil if they need it. We're lawyers. I handle civil, criminal. I don't know what Mr. Levin was handling when he was in private practice, but we multitask. That's how you succeed. That's what you do as the business community out there. You make do with what you have, and you don't ask for more, especially when everybody else is hurting on Guam. So I'm not looking, politicians like the 100-day plan. We're not looking at a 100-day plan. We're looking at the day after election. I'm already talking to former prosecutors. I'm trying to get the people to see the problems that we have there so that I can get them into the fight. This is a fight. I'm not a social worker. This gentleman here, he's talking about therapy when the drug crimes are taking your property. The guy that was put into the therapy just broke into your store. Read the newspapers. They're committing crimes again. You release them, it's catch and release. And I think the New York mayor said catch, release, reoffend. It's happening on Guam. It is happening. The most egregious thing that can happen, and it's just waiting for the newspaper, you release and they kill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moylan. So, Mr. Camacho, what do you foresee in your first 90 days of office? What will be your accomplishments? And if re-elected, what are your top 3 priorities?
We're moving along. We're going to continue to recruit prosecutors. Again, I admit that. And we don't have 8. That was you. You're confusing yourself here. We have 55 attorneys at the office. So we need to look at the AG's office. We talk about crime. That's not all we do. And you can't just say, oh, all of our civil litigation people, we're going to cross-train you, so we're going to put you in child support for a few weeks. It's difficult to do that when you only have 1 attorney in divisions, as you did when you were AG, Mr. Moylan. So what I would do for the next 90 days, we're going to continue to work. We have an advisory council meeting to talk about an effective plan, how we're going to use the millions of dollars that we have recovered through our opioid litigation. We are going to continue to look. We've launched a pilot program with GPD, the lethality assessment program, to identify high-risk family violence victims and to immediately connect them with resources so they can potentially remove themselves out of the dangerous situation and not be another fatality. We're going to build on that. We're going to continue to work with our federal partners and strengthen those relationships to prevent drugs from coming into the island. So this is all work that we've started on already. And all I'm asking for, during a pandemic, mind you, I mean, kind of the elephant in the room, we've done all this, the collections, the litigation, in COVID. All I'm asking for is a chance to continue. Give me 4 real years, not COVID years, to finish the work and to complete the job that I've started.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Moylan, 1 minute rebuttal.
Top 3 priorities: crime, crime, crime. First time I've ever heard of COVID years. That sounds like an excuse. You should have used that time to protect us. Just because we're in a lockdown doesn't mean that the criminals are in a lockdown. That meant that they were more active because our AG was on a lockdown. That is not what the people expect. That is not what you're going to get from this Attorney General. Look at my record. Read the newspapers. Read my Facebook posts in the past 30 days. That is my platform. To digress a bit, when they're incarcerated, if the chamber, the people want to give them a trade that's certified, let them earn their way back into society. I'm okay with that. Make them a mason, a electrician, whatever you want to help the build-up. Give them something when they get out. They don't need to steal your stuff because they got their certificate and they can work for it. Work through their drug addiction after they pay their time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. So, Mr. Camacho, the newspapers often report when a person committing a crime is a repeat offender. What is your position on those who are released, then perpetrate or reoffend another crime? How do you intend to address this matter?
You know, Ernie, this is, I'm sorry, Mr. Galito. I guess they didn't talk about referring to as Mr. Too. This is one of those things that our office gets beat up for all the time. We don't release defendants. And oftentimes, in particular in violent crimes, we are asking for them to be held, okay? The decision whether to release a criminal defendant is a judicial one. And I know Mr. Moylan likes to just talk about catch and release. He knows better. He wants to promote that misrepresentation, that somehow the AG's office is the one releasing defendants, even though he knows it's not true. And we just need to understand what our role is as an executive function, which is to prosecute, to charge, and what is a judicial function, which is to release, potentially, and to sentence. We are in the community. Our prosecutors live here. They want the bad guys to stay in jail. They don't want them out. They are victims themselves. So to act like our dedicated prosecutors somehow want crime to be rampant is ridiculous. So we will continue to ask for the conditions that ensure the safety of the community, to ensure that they're not going to pose a flight risk. But if a judge who, there's a presumption of innocence, and I hate to say this to remind people that just because you're charged doesn't mean you're guilty of something. The judges are performing their functions as well. And the piece that Mr. Moylan is not talking about, where are you going to put these individuals? DOC's at max capacity. If you incarcerate someone for a pipe every day, you're going to incarcerate 10 people every day? There's not going to be room to put them. Nowhere. That's not a solution. Put the people who are dangerous in crime, put the repeat offenders, hold them. Hold them accountable, absolutely. But to say that our office is somehow responsible for catch and release is a ridiculous and a misrepresentation, and they should know better than to say that kind of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moylan. What is your position on those who are released and then reoffend or perpetrate a crime, and how do you intend to address this matter?
Mr. Camacho is wrong. The prosecutors put the cases together. They go before the grand jury. They have the police reports. They bring it to the judiciary. When you've lost half your prosecution of 21, how do you like being an attorney that gets 9 other prosecutors' cases dumped on your tables? You think those guys, you think any of you, I can't go into a 24-hour hearing and tell the judge why the victim thinks that this person is going to come out and beat them up again, going to kill them, going to do that? They are making mistakes in that AG's office. Mr. Santos, you can interview after. Last week, 3 magistrate complaints that's supposed to have probable cause. It's a one-sided document that this is a crime, this person did it. Charge him. The magistrate judge kicked it out of his courtroom because it was so poorly written. The victim had to hear that the person that was supposed to have a restraining order on them or thrown in jail is out because he can't get enough lawyers to do our job. The people deserve protection. It's not happening in the AG's office. The 2 standards that the judges look at on a pretrial, you're innocent until proven guilty. Well, probable cause in that affidavit says danger to the community and likelihood of reappearance. He's not making the arguments. They're bungling the cases. People are going to get hurt, property is going to be taken, and people are going to die if you let certain people out. And it's not the judge's fault. It's the prosecutor and the attorney general ultimately. When I was in that office, I took full responsibility for any screw-up that happened there. That is the way you want to elect an attorney general.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Your rebuttal, Mr. Contra.
I don't know if I heard an answer to the question. I mean, I said it's a judicial function to decide whether or not a defendant is released. And Mr. Moylan said, well, the judges have to do this, but it's not the judge's fault. Those seem to be pretty inconsistent to me. The first time when you charge a defendant out, the court gets a document from probation where they do an assessment. Do they have criminal history? Are they high risk? And the judge uses that to make a decision whether or not or what kind of conditions to impose. So you can't stand up here with a straight face and say the decision to release a defendant is the AG's decision. That's absolutely false. It's wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. But again, I understand why you want to promote that. Because you want to say, oh, he's going to keep coming back to, we've lost, he doesn't know the number. And look at the number. It's not hard. Our staffing patterns on our website. Okay? We have other attorneys who are assisting as well. And we still have more than you had in 2005 when you were dismissing cases. So to act like that didn't happen under you, that you were actually dismissing cases because you don't have resources, is again ridiculous.
Thank you very much for your rebuttal.
That's really showing that you don't know what's going on.
Thank you. So, Mr. Moylan, you have a question here. Please provide examples of significant accomplishments you have garnered as your former term as Attorney General of Guam.
We kept Guam safe. You never heard that my office was losing half its prosecutors because I did not treat them right. He wasn't prosecuting cases that should have been prosecuted, or demoralizing them by making them take cases that they couldn't win. The Surahano case. Who pushed this attorney to go into court and prosecute that type of case? It was ridiculous. It was a circus of the Attorney General taking a case into court and a jury and wasting their time. I saw it was going to lose from the moment that it was charged. Where is the case analysis that's going on? Didn't happen in my office. From your perspective, the bond borrowing was exactly what the people need to see. When the government isn't spending your money or borrowing money when they can't afford it and the processes aren't being followed, we felt that that needed to be a statement. It's not a criminal matter, it's a civil matter. And we won before the US Supreme Court. The AG decides what cases should be prosecuted, what cases shouldn't be prosecuted, assesses what your resource capability is. That's why they call him a general. They call him a general because he hires the troops, the deputies, in order to protect you. This man is not doing that. He is incompetent. You will see incompetence when that front headline is somebody that he allowed to get out just killed somebody. K-57 yesterday. Flora called in. You should have just heard that call from that woman. That this man did not protect her son. The boy was sucker punched. If you watch Fox News, look at Fox News. That's what a sucker punch looks like. Not looking and gets hit from the back. She accused him of not protecting her. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Contra, please respond.
Sure. We've had historic settlements. We've recovered millions of dollars that are going to go towards supporting our drug treatment programs. We've secured historic settlements. We've filed historic cases to protect our land, our water, our culture. We have modernized our office. We are going to provide an update to our child support system, which hasn't been updated in 2 decades. We have released a historic amount of child support arrears to families who have waited decades to get paid. We have cleaned up some of the messes that were left by Mr. Moreland when he was Attorney General, where he failed to have proper controls and measures in child support, probably because he doesn't care about child support. Now, one of the things that Attorney Moreland forgot to leave out in terms of an accomplishment or something notable, he was evicted from the judiciary for not failing to pay rent. So if we're going to talk about incompetence and management, he was held by the court, Supreme Court, to have violated a court order, this is in a Supreme Court opinion, to not discuss or interfere in an ongoing criminal matter. Now, I'm not here to run on what Attorney Moreland did when he was in office, but to say that somehow I'm incompetent.
Thank you very much for your response. Mr. Moynihan, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
AG Limtiaco, 4 years. Well, I think it's 2 years, and then the remainder. AG Limtiaco, AG Rapadas, AG Elizabeth Barrett Anderson. 12 years of attorneys general, and he's blaming me for his inability to do what the people need him to do. Don't bring up child support with me, because we pushed that child support to such a level that people were congratulating us for what we did back then. And by the way, if you remember 4 years ago, where's that unaccounted for money that he kept strapping around my neck about money sitting in the Bank of Guam or whatever account that wasn't released to the custodial parents? We have a Sunshine Act request to him right now to see what a miracle this gentleman has been on running that office. I guarantee you, he has not been able to find those parents. He has done nothing to what he was accusing me of. But we're not living in the past, and that's the problem with him. He's coming after 15 years ago. We need to know what's happening now.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your sincerity. Thank you very much for answering these questions. We appreciate the audience. Oh, pardon me. We have to do concluding remarks. My producer has informed me that I have not been diligent in following the program.
You're quick to get out of here.
So, the concluding remarks will be first done by Mr. Camacho.
Let me know when I'm ready to go. Sure. To answer Mr. Mohan's question about UDC, we reissued over 400 checks in over 200 cases. 400 checks, 200 cases, including 30 checks that were issued when Mr. Moreland was the Attorney General. We set up a system to manage our current cases and to go through UDC. And that was going, again, 400 checks, 200 cases, until March of 2020. And we know what happened in March of 2020. We then shifted focus to get all these parents. Record arrears were paid out in the last 3 years. We've distributed millions more than Mr. Moreland did when he was Attorney General. Now, my closing remarks, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Don't forget. I'm not afraid of a fight. I'm not afraid of competition. But I'm not looking for a fight. That's not the way that I was raised. I ran for this office because I believe in the good that we can do for the people of Guam. I believe in the good that we can do for the community. And I've had my family here to support me. I have my mom, my dad, my amazing wife, and her parents. And they have kept me grounded. It's so easy to become petty when you're in politics because it's dirty, it's nasty. But they remind me that's not who I am. That's not who I am. They've grounded me. They remind me every day that I love this island. This is my home. Stick to what you are, stick to what you stand for, and the person you are is reflected in the work that you do when you hold this position, when you're in this office. I thank them for the support, I thank my family, and I thank you for your support and your families, and I hope that you can continue to support me until the general election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. Mr. Moylan, your concluding remarks.
I again thank you for hosting this forum. Political speech and political debate remain the highest protected speech in our Constitution. My 30 years of experience in all three branches of government with a winning track record allows me to guarantee that I remain the toughest AG on crime and the most independent AG on this stage, free of political influence, especially by this governor. I have not accepted any donations. I am running on the merits of my education, training, experience, and winning track records. This guy needs to be fact-checked, by the way. It defines who I am and the legal services that I offer to you. Like the Guam Chamber of Commerce, you gauge success based upon profitability. I submit to you that I am your best investment. I sincerely thank those who voted for me. I respectfully ask those that did not to carefully compare us. And I humbly ask those who have yet to decide to please vote for me on November 8th. I remain the toughest AG on crime with the most to offer you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Thank you, Mr. Camacho. Thank you, audience. This is the Guam Chamber of Commerce Attorney General Forum. I appreciate your support and appreciate your patience with us and your cooperation. Thank you, everybody.